Good morning, Idaho. Hope you're having a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're listening to this. Welcome to the Local Yokel Idaho podcast, where we talk about what is going on in the wonderful state of Idaho. Today, we have a lot to cover. Most of it, I just couldn't let go. I was sitting there and I'm like, I need to cut it down to a couple stories. And I was just like, nope, this is all good. We're just going to run with it here and see if we can get it all to fit. First off, we'll have a story about Planned Parenthood's abortion billboards. Don't worry, the kids can stay for that one. Fully clean for them to be able to hear and talk about. Then the flower picking and Idaho ice caves. And then we'll finish up with some foods and tanks. Yes, a story about military tanks. Every guy right now is probably really excited. And I really enjoyed writing and reading the story for that one, so it'll be cool. Hey, glad to have you here today. Please join me for the morning banter where I chat with you a little bit before we get into it. But if you're short on time and prefer to skip the banter here, you can use the timestamp that's down in the description to jump straight to the stories and all that and everything. With that out of the way, is it just me or was this week cooler? I think maybe I got set off because the week previously or so, it was 100 degrees plus regularly. And then this last week we were in the 90s or low 90s, which is still very, very hot. But for me, wasn't too bad, honestly. It felt cooler. I had a bunch of people asking me in conversation stuff do you think it's cooler? I'm like, maybe. I don't know. It just seemed to be a really common theme this week. Maybe not. Hopefully it felt cooler for you because it always, for me anyways, it's always nice to have cooler weather than is warmer weather. I know there's some people, and maybe you're one of those people, which I don't understand it, where you guys like it warm, where you're more comfortable with it hotter than cooler. For me, if it's cooler, you can just put a coat on, or you can start a fire or something, right, to heat up, rather than if you're already hot, it's really hard to cool down. Now, I can hear that person, well, then just jump in some water or get in air conditioning. But one, air conditioning is a modern advancement. Really cool statistic. I won't give it away or spoil it, but I would highly recommend. You'll be surprised if you go look at it. Look at the amount of ACs or the amount of people that have AC in Europe compared to the United States. It's a crazy, crazy statistic. But with that said, AC is kind of energy intensive and more of a modern invention, shall we say, and it isn't used all the time, shall we say. We try to be a little lenient with it, but it is a wonderful invention. And then the other, jumping in water or going in swimming stuff, I don't prefer to get wet. There's a reason for me here in the southern part of Idaho. There's a reason I live in a desert. I don't want to get wet. I don't prefer it. I mean, if I have a jacket on and it's raining and stuff, that's fine. It's fine. I am not one that prefers the feeling of water on me and whatever else. And for all those that you're asking that question, yes, showers and baths, I get those and everything, and I'll go swimming with friends, but it's just not a preferred feeling, shall we say. Just like some people really, they'll go and work out and they'll get sweaty and all that and stuff, but they really don't like the feeling of being sweaty. There's some people who do. You have those kind of two contrasts there. But in any case, I hope you guys all had a fun week last week. I most certainly did. The first half of the week was mostly work on this and trying to get it ready for you. But on Thursday, there was the Patriots of Idaho event that I went to. It was super cool. I actually got to run the sound for that. They had, I think it was 3 speakers. There was, I think it's Theodore Wold. Hopefully I'm saying the last name correctly. He's the Idaho Solicitor General. He was speaking. I have to say, hands down, probably my favorite speaker there. It was cool to hear from him. I didn't know, but he actually worked in the Trump campaign and different stuff. And if you're wondering what the Solicitor General is, and I'm probably butchering it if I remember, but this is kind of off the top of my head, he is part of the legal part for the state, or not the state, for the government of Idaho. So if Idaho's going to be suing someone or in court and different things, he's the lawyer for the state. I think that's it. I could be wrong. I can't remember what's the difference between the Solicitor General and the Attorney General. I'm kind of getting those flipped up. Maybe if someone messaged me about that next week, I'll bring it back up if you guys are interested enough. But any case, he was talking about some of the interesting court cases and stuff that Idaho's taken on and representing certain people and the argument for what is objectively right and what is objectively wrong, and to stand up that and being able to do that as the Solicitor General for the state of Idaho and stuff. So that was a really cool speech. If I can find the link, or if they post a link for it, let me know. I know I think there were some videos that were shot there for it. If you guys are interested enough, I'll go out and look and see if I can find a clip of the event. And then the second guy that was speaking was Gabe Reach. He's the founder, CEO of the Patriots of Idaho group. It was really cool to hear him talk. He's from Texas, technically, but he's been here for quite a little bit. I think he moved here back in the 90s or whatever, so he's been here for a good chunk of time. It's not like he's a brand new transplant. And then they had, the last guy they had speaking there was Dan Steinmeier. He's the pastor over in Middleton at one of the churches. I can't remember the name of the church off the top of my head. He gave a speech about how God's word and as Christians, our conviction upon that should automatically inform the way that we write and read and do policy and government, because if we believe that there is a God in heaven above and that the scriptures are divinely inspired and a manual of how we should live life, then as Christians, we should then morally, if all those premises follow, take God's word and try to apply that thought process and those things to our government rules, because if it's given down by God, then it should be fairly perfect for law and reasoning, shall we say. So any case, that was really interesting. I got to have that Thursday. And then Friday, if anybody you follow me on Twitter, you probably saw it there. I was at the Idaho GOP event. I think it was at Capitol Church or whatever, where Carrie Lake was speaking there. It was really cool to see her. I will admit, some of you guys I know really like Carrie Lake, but when I heard about the event, I was like, Carrie Lake. That name rings a bell. I haven't really kept up with her, but then when I was like researching or trying to figure out and people were mentioning the event and stuff, I went and looked out and did some stuff. I'm like, oh, the gal that was running for governor over there in Arizona, and then all the election different stuff, and it took like a month, and then she lost, and all the fiasco, and then different things that were going on there. I was like, oh, okay, now I remember her. But yeah, I went there. It was really good. I really enjoyed. There was a lot of wonderful, God-fearing, patriot people to talk to there that really loved Idaho a ton and had a lot of really great conversations and times. Granted, I will admit, the venue that we were staying there at, the church, it was hot. I swear the AC like broke or whatever. Maybe it was just so many people that it got so hot there. I don't know, but it got to one point there where it was like, could she say something in her speech and we could all clap and then stand up so I could just move out of the seat to get a little airflow? Because it was hot, and I kind of made the mistake of wearing like a tweed blazer, which that was not the smartest, but I thought, I'm going to be in an air-conditioned building. It'll be fine. But it was really good. I enjoyed her speech. There were some parts that I disagreed with a little bit, but you don't always agree 100% with everyone. You can support someone and not have all the same points, but I think she gave a lot of wonderful points, and it was good to hear, and glad she was able to visit in Idaho, and it sounds like she really enjoyed her visit, which is always glad to hear. And then finally, I swear this is like a little bit of a saga, I got to go hiking this Saturday. I know I've been talking about it for the last like 2 weeks. I was so happy I got to go. It's also why the podcast is a little delayed, but I needed to get out. The family was going on a hike, and I was sitting there Saturday and being like, yeah, I'm going to go hiking. And it was awesome. We went up there by Cascade just before you hit the lake, kind of taking a left there and heading up there. For you guys, you probably know what that lake is. It was really, really pretty. I'm going to try to slowly post photos there over on Twitter, because I can't post there on Instagram. If you wonder about that story, you should listen to last week's Morning Banter, because I kind of explained what was going on there with Instagram and me, a little bit of a beef there. But I will be trying to post some of the videos and photos I took while I was on the hike there. I took the drone up with me and was able to fly it around and get some really, really cool footage of the mountains up there. It was gorgeous. There was flowers everywhere, and it was so green and lush. Usually this time of year when I've been up in the mountains, it's still green and lush because the Cascade McCall area, I feel like you guys up there kind of lag about, a month or two behind the Treasure Valley in your seasons, or you just get stuck in the winter ones, depending on how you look at it. But it was really pretty up there. There was tons of wildflowers. It was super green. The lake was nice and full. We hiked into. It was just gorgeous. I'm so happy I was able to go, and I'll definitely be getting those photos out to you. With that said, that was my week. I don't have too much else to share. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the podcast. If you have any feedback, please send it over. I noticed that over on Rumble, the podcast has been really exploding with views. I don't know why, per se. I know the YouTube has seen a little less activity and Rumble's seen more. Not quite sure. Also, for those that listen on the audio only, over on YouTube, there are clips, kind of little chunks of the podcast that I dice up for you guys. And so if there's a part of the podcast you want to share with a friend, or there's a little bit or something you want to listen to real quick to get the bits of, then you can go over to the YouTube and look at the shorts. I try to have those there as a resource for you guys, and you can also share around with your friends and family for the podcast to let them know so they can enjoy in the wonderfulness, which is Idaho. In any case, that's all I got to share, and we'll get into the first story here. So, moving into the news here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 main stories. That's a bit more than usual. Thankfully, the Quickies are a little slimmed down this week, but there was just so many stories I wanted to share with you guys, and I wanted to give commentary and kind of talk on, so it made it a little bit larger. Please bear with me. I know this week's probably going to be a little longer when I get to the editing part of it, but I think they were all worthwhile topics to talk about. Starting here with our first one, Planned Parenthood Billboards. This comes by KTV B7 by Andrew Bartlein. As many of you know, Idaho has laws on the books that ban abortion of babies in the state of Idaho. I know there's more details to that, but the law is not the topic of the story. It's more the results of it. The Planned Parenthood in Idaho has launched a new billboard campaign in the state. The billboard directs Idahoans out of state for abortion after our trigger law went into effect, banning most abortions. The billboards are located in Boise, Twin Falls, and Coeur d'Alene, and they feature a pink Planned Parenthood logo and the words, quote, "Idaho abortion care is illegal. Get help here," end quote. Planned Parenthood says the billboards are a way to provide information to Idahoans where they can get abortions. The organizers say that many Idahoans will need to travel out of state to get an abortion after the trigger law went into effect. As many of you can guess, the billboards have been met with mixed reactions. Some people have praised Planned Parenthood for providing information to Idahoans about abortion options. Others have criticized the billboards, saying that they are offensive and promote abortion. Which, bear with me here a second, just playing devil's advocate here. At the end of the day, Planned Parenthood wants to make money, right? They are a business. They're not a government institution. They are trying to make money. And they can't do that in the state of Idaho because they can't do abortions here. That's their main money market, from what I understand. Someone might correct me on that. I haven't gone out. I don't have the numbers right on that. But if I remember correctly, that's the main thing that makes the money. And even if it isn't, that's the way they're acting, shall we say, with this action here. Because if they had other ways to make money, then they wouldn't be going this far out with billboards and stuff. So, point in case, they need to make money. They can't make it in the state of Idaho. So they're just simply directing people out of state for that service. Which, if this was something just as simple as food or groceries or gas for some inanimate object, this would not be an issue. This would not be a problem. But that's not what it is. I would argue fully that that's not the case, that you're dealing with a human being that is existing within you. And just because you poorly made decisions to do certain actions that either had the possibility or did things and without the protection thereof, and you had a child, then that is the resulting responsibility. I feel like many people try to figure out ways in our culture today to get away from the results of their actions. That is the result of your action. And you can either choose to live with the results of that action or do a heinous crime, or in my opinion, a sin, and murder another human being's life. It's not right to do. And so by us defining the baby, if we do define that baby is a human being and a human life, an image bearer of God that should not be murdered, then Planned Parenthood trying to do these things, be like, oh, you can go out of state. Yeah, our services, we can't do them in the state of Idaho, but hey, you can go over here. Then it's bad. It's encouraging vice. It's encouraging a sin. It's encouraging an evil thing that should not be encouraged. There's a reason it's banned here. It'll be interesting to see what the public reaction for me. I'm very curious to see what the reaction will be with these billboards. If people will just be like, all right, look, yeah, haha, Planned Parenthood's trying to do their best to, do stuff in Idaho and continue with abortions and stuff. Or if certain towns and municipalities decide to fight back and want those billboards taken down because of insanity laws or different things, because you wouldn't have a sign sitting up there and being like, hey, you can't murder in city limits, but if you go over to this area, you can murder, right? Because that town has an obligation that said, hey, as a group, as a society, we've determined that this is an evil, this is a wrong thing, and thus we prevented it within our jurisdiction. And if you're doing means and you live in our jurisdiction to try to circumvent that rule for our citizens and our people that we have decided is wrong and bad, then we're going to take actions to stop it, which I think for the local government is fully within their bounds. I think Sometimes we get hooked up on the federal government and like, well, the federal government can't tell me to do this, and the federal government shouldn't have that control. And honestly, I think there's a discussion to be had there, and I would agree on a lot of those points. The federal government's job is to protect the union and to help govern and have consistency in the union. Now, when you're getting into components of the union should be able to govern itself to a sense internally. And so when you're talking about laws like this, if a society, if a town, if a county makes a decision, or in this case, a state as a whole with all of its representatives have made a decision that abortion's wrong, and then you have a business that's trying to circumvent that, it'll be interesting to see if local municipalities will then flex that authority to say, hey, you got to take those signs down. We don't want those here. They don't stand for what we're wanting to do here. And it's circumventing the law that we have in place saying that abortions are an evil, abortions are wrong, and they shouldn't be done after a certain point, or not for medical reasons, shall we say. So I think it'll be really interesting to see as it develops. I understand why Planned Parenthood is doing it. It'll just be interesting, and it's just kind of sad to see, but there again, to be expected from Planned Parenthood. But moving into our next story here, a little bit of a break from the political here. Drones, Bonneville County, and weeds. This comes by East Idaho News by Nelson. This is a story I have some expertise in, shall we say. The Bonneville County Noxious Weeds Department is going to be using a new drone to spray weeds faster and in more difficult areas. The department's new toy is a DJI Agris T10. It costs $15,000. I will admit, when I saw the T10, I instantly thought of like a Russian tank or something. I'm such a history nerd and guy at that. It can carry up to 10 gallons of herbicide. The drone can be used to spray noxious weeds in areas that are difficult to reach by the ground, such as steep slopes and waterways. As with most drones, it is equipped with a GPS system that allows the drone to fly a precision pattern. The herbicide is sprayed out of nozzles on the bottom of the drone. It can also be programmed to fly different altitudes depending on the type of weed that is being sprayed. With that said, one may ask, why use drones? Well, there are a few benefits to using them to spray weeds. First, they are more efficient than spraying on foot. Drones can cover larger areas in a shorter amount of time. According to the department, it can spray between 12 to 15 acres per hour, which that's just crazy to think of that timeline there. Second, it is safer than spraying from the ground. Drones can fly over areas that are too dangerous for people to access, as we kind of talked about above there. And third and lastly, it's more efficient. This is because the drone can use less herbicide due to the fact it can be more precise in the areas where it does end up spraying. Now, some of you may or may not know, I can't remember if I mentioned it on here, but I actually went to school for drones and graduated with my license and all that and everything, so you can kind of do that. A lot of people kind of forget it, but if you are a person who's just flying a drone recreationally, don't need a license for that. If you're just flying it to take photos of your kids and videos and at the park and stuff, don't need your license. Don't worry about it as long as you're using a DJI, kind of that small consumer drone, you're fine. Where you need your license is any time that you're using a drone for profit or money. So if you're sit there and say you're a construction operator and you want to take videos of the construction zone and have those for later analysis or for surveying, or you've got a property where you're raising cattle for money and then you're going to fly the drone out to kind of monitor them and stuff, that's where you're going to need license because you're getting profit from the use of that drone. That's where the government, or FAA anyway, says you should get your license there, and they can kind of come after you if you haven't. So, with that said, I knew DJI was working on a ag drone, kind of something like this that sprayed and did stuff, but I didn't know it was for sale, let alone the price tag, which is kind of staggering. I mean, it's cheaper than a car. It's cheaper than some used cars lately. I swear, it's crazy, the used car market. But it is super cool to see drones being used in more industries. I know ag is one of those. If I remember correctly, the drones have been kind of limited. They used them in kind of greenhouses and stuff to spray and do things kind of like this and surveying because it can be hard to kind of tramp through the whole greenhouse, and it's a little bit more consistent. I've seen them kind of used a little bit over in some French farms where they'll kind of have a drone fly over and do the surveying of the farm field. They'll do that a ton, where you can have a multi-spectrum cam and you can fly over, and then the drone can send data back to the farmer and let him know the exact areas he needs to spray. He doesn't need to spray the whole field. Be like, you have a disease here, these plants are stressed, and he can check it out rather than having to do the whole field entirely. I knew that was existing and happening, but I didn't know something like this, which is really interesting and cool application to do, especially here in Idaho, where we've got all these rocky mountains and streams in every area that's kind of difficult to get to, and you're trying to manage invasive weeds. Well, you can just fly a drone over, do some surveying, find your identified spot. It has its longitude and latitude based on its GPS and everything that it's gotten from its first flight. Then you send the drone out, it can spray those locations, and then you're done. You don't have to have people tramping through and disturbing certain areas of the environment or kind of putting people in harm's way. I also know, if you're curious, the biggest areas that I know that it is being used in is, number one, you got mapping. It's being used a ton in that. Film and photography, we've seen that a ton. There's a ton of Hollywood movies that use drones in them, and also real estate's using them a ton. Inspections is another one where it's not like you're taking a photo, but using them to fly up and check power lines before you'd have to either have guys climb up there, or you'd have to get a helicopter, which that's even more work and stuff. Another one that's kind of cool, and I think it's the coolest one out of all of these, is cattle work and protection, also security, and as many of us know, Amazon and Google are working on like a delivery service with drones, but that's a whole legal nightmare. I know with the cattle one, kind of speaking of that, I heard of a group, I think it was down in Texas, I might be wrong, somewhere abouts in there, that they were using drones where they'd have little lasers on them and speakers and stuff, and they could fly them out, and they could scare off the coyotes because they'd shoot them with the laser, and it was high-powered enough to kind of sting the wolf a little bit and then make the wolf go away and stay away from the cattle, and then also using the speakers on the drone to kind of direct and guide the cattle around and stuff, which is a cool idea. Also, kind of on that same vein, using drones to be security, where say you've got a large piece of property and say you have a proximity thing that goes off, whatever, that someone's on the property that shouldn't be, then you can kind of fly the drone out and go check it out and stuff, rather than having to go drive and all that and everything. So there's a lot of really crazy, cool areas that they're being used in. I think many of us know about the drones they're using over Ukraine, which is a scary but interesting implementation, to say the least, of seeing where drones are kind of also changing modern warfare. But in any case, overall, this is really cool to see. It's awesome to see more industries kind of using drones and trying to be smart and utilizing that technology, and I hope it works out for them. I think from what I was reading in the article, they just have one for right now, kind of as a test platform, but it'll be interesting to see if more places in Idaho kind of adopt it, or if it's just going to be kind of a niche thing over there. Our next story here, kind of swinging back into the politics a little bit. I swear this is one of our last ones here, and then we'll kind of get out of it. Boundary County creates adult book section. This comes by the Bonners Feral Herald by Emily Bosnat. So some news up north in Boundary County related to libraries. The Boundary County Library is creating a new section for adult books aimed at readers 18 to 25. The section will be called, quote, New Adult, end quote, and will feature books that explore themes of identity, relationships, and self-discovery. The decision to create the new section was made after the library received feedback from patrons who said they were looking for more books that reflected their interest. Quote, we wanted to create a space where young adults could feel comfortable and explore their interest and find books that speak to them, end quote. The library director said, Sarah Smith. The new section will include a variety of genres, including fiction, nonfiction, and graphic novels. The library is also planning to host events and book discussions in the section. So I assume some of you guys know about the fiasco that was happening during the legislative session, that there was a bill trying to remove sexually explicit content and material from libraries in the state of Idaho. If I remember correctly from that in Idaho, we do have laws in the books that say, hey, minors can't be given on their own accord. If adult gives a minor sexually explicit or pornographic content stuff, that's illegal. You have to say that, if it's a venue like a strip club or something like that, there has to be IDs checked at the door. A minor can't go in there. And if, adult is giving a minor some content or something, they shouldn't be doing that. We have laws like that on the book in Idaho to kind of prevent that. But the library has this weird kind of exception I've heard in there. I haven't gone and looked out at the exact verbiage, but that's what I've heard, that kind of allows libraries to have some of this content stuff. And this last legislative session, they were trying to do stuff to remove that exemption and bring the library under the standard law that applies to everywhere else in the state. Sadly, that bill, if I remember correctly, got vetoed, and then it lost by one vote to override the veto. So kind of sad in my opinion, because I was hoping that bill would go through. But this looks kind of like a response where the Boundary County Library is trying to cover its butts, in my opinion. It seems like something where they're like, okay, cool. We know we live in a conservative state. We know there's people who don't like the fact that these type of books are at the library. So let's try to like separate them. So later on, if something happens in the legislative session, maybe we'll not get hit with the boot as hard because, hey, look, we did separate them. They weren't available for minors, right? They had to be of 18 to get to them, and they're separate and all that and everything, which honestly, I think is a good compromise. I don't like how the library, though, is sitting here trying to play games and be like, well, we had patrons and blah, 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 and we want to create a space where young adults could feel comfortable and explore their interests. And no, those are sexually deviant pornographic content. I don't think is anything that should be a library. The library should be a place of education, discovery, and understanding. And that's not what books on transgenderism and all these other topics are at all. These are things that the people who have these, my heart goes out to them, but they need help. They have an issue. They have a difficulty. God made men and women, only two genders, and made them as complementary roles to be within marriage of a husband and a wife. And from that premise, any deviation of that is not good for the human condition. To be like me sitting there and telling a truck to go beat a Ferrari on the racetrack. Both of them are cars. Yes, they are. But they are wildly differently designed and they excel in different areas. And we can't say they're the same or that one can do the role of the other. They have their roles and they complement each other in the way that they work. Same with men and women. And those that have difficulties or issues fitting into the God-given role, the design that God gave to them and made them for, need help, need love, need to be shown that, you have these strong desires, and we're not saying they aren't there, but you need help and we need to work with you. This is a condition. Just like we sit there and say, if you think you're a mouse or a horse, no, you're not a mouse and a horse. Objective reality says you're a human being and that you're an image bearer of God and you're not a horse and you're not a mouse. And thus, we need to help you out of your delusion, out of this weird place you've got yourself into. And that's the most loving thing we can do for you. But coming back to the books here, we shouldn't encourage something that is, in my opinion, a wrong design of the nature of humanity. Rather than the library should be a place of education where people can go and learn about the world that is around us and to better broaden their understandings of the things that exist and the way they work, or to be inspired by fiction or whatever else. That's a different topic. I know fiction is something that people enjoy. I don't consume a lot of it, but then again, I'm a big nerd. I get way more fun out of a statistical sheet and all that information and a philosophy book than I ever do out of any fictional book. But they have their place. There are some fictional books I really, really enjoyed. But now, coming out of the political events, we have Treasure Valley You Pick Flower Farm. This comes by the Boise Dev by Ann Daly. A little bit of a more uplifting and flowery one. There is a place over in Eagle that gives people the ability to pick flowers all year. Looks like a wonderful day thing to go do with your family. The Eagle Flower Farm is owned and operated by Lauren Allen. Lauren started the farm in 2019 after she realized there was a lack of you-pick flower farms in the Treasure Valley. She wanted to create a place where people could come and pick their own flowers, and she also wanted to provide a space for people to connect with nature. The farm is located on 10 acres of land and is home to a variety of flowers, including sunflowers, lily, roses, and daisies, among others. The flowers are planted in rows, and they have signs to tell you what type of flower each one is, which is super cool. According to them, there are a few benefits for picking your own flowers. First, it is a great way to save money. You Pick Flower Farms typically charge a flat rate fee for flowers, which is much cheaper than buying flowers from a florist. And second, and most importantly, it's a fun activity to do with friends or families. Picking flowers is a great way to get some fresh air and exercise and be out in God's creation. And thirdly and lastly, it's a great way to learn about the flowers. You can pick your own flowers and learn about the different types of flowers and how to care for them, plus get to see some of them close up and personal. For those of you hooked on going, the Eagle Flower Farm is open from June to September. It is open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. 7 days a week. Admission is $5 a person, and children under 12 are free. So a very affordable summer outing for those homeschool families and families in general in the Treasure Valley. Which, this is a super cool idea. I was sitting here reading this and thought, wait, something like this didn't already exist, and my brain was trying to think of it. And I know there was like the Lavender Festival that happened earlier in the year, and you kind of have that, but that's just lavender. And I was like, No, there really isn't a place that I can think of that it's like, okay, cool, we've got the garden, we take care, we grow all the flowers, we get them going, we've planned it all out so there's flowers all times of the year, and so you can come and pick your own and then give those, for holidays for our grandma's birthday or grandpa's birthday or for Mother's Day or Father's Day, and I was like, I can't think of any. So this, I think, is a really cool idea. I think they're going to do really well. It also sounds like it's really affordable for people to go do. And would be a perfect thing to kind of do with the family there, especially if kids under 12 are free. So that means if you've got a family and you have no children over 12 and you've got a mom and dad, you're just going to spend like $10 for the parents and then everything else is free, which sounds like a really cool thing. Even if, during the school year to go out with like homeschoolers, I know a lot of us homeschoolers parents will, and mothers especially, will use any occasion to be a educational moment, shall we say. And this would probably be a cool thing to be like, okay, kids, we're going out for a field trip. Let's go pick some flowers and we'll learn about them. And it would be cheap and affordable. I don't know about all the different ones. The photo they had there, it looks like they had some really pretty zinnias. I don't know if they're going to have marigolds. But on taking acres of land, there's a lot of different flowers they can do and stuff. So definitely somewhere I plan on visiting, and might also be a really great date idea if you want to take someone out, a gal in your life that really enjoys the floral element of things. Next story is Idaho's largest caves. This comes by the Boise Deb by Ann Daly. Now, if picking flowers in 90 to 100 degrees isn't your thing, and you're looking for something cooler both in temperature and experience, these caves just outside of Boise may be just the thing for you and your family. This is shown ice caves are located in the Sawtooth Mountains, about an hour's drive from Boise. Scientists say the caves were formed by lava flows that melted and then refroze, creating a series of ice tunnels and chambers. The caves are home to a variety of ice formations, including stalactites, stalagmites, and ice currents. Whew, I got through all of those. I didn't get a tongue twist there. The ice is constantly changing, so each time will be different from the last. The caves are also known as, quote, Earth's underground refrigerator, end quote. This is because they stay at a constant temperature of between 23 to 33 degrees Fahrenheit, even in the summer. Oh, that sounds so nice. Thus making them a wonderful place for people to cool off on hot days such as the ones we've been having lately. As for why the ice caves are the largest caves in Idaho, that is because they are made up of a series of interconnected tunnels and chambers that stretch over a mile or 1,700 feet, with ice blocks between the sizes of 8 to 30 feet deep. The caves are also home to some of the most impressive ice formations in the state. For those interested in going and cooling off, the Shoshone Ice Caves are open from May to September between the hours of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., 7 days a week. Admission is $12 for adults, $10 for seniors, and $8 for children 6 to 1. So looks like a super cool thing to go do. I'm actually really tempted when there's a hot day or a weekend where I can get away to go over there. Also a really cool idea. I got to add that to the list of video ideas to do when I get a chance to do that for the podcast. A little bit more pricey than the flowers, obviously, but you're paying a premium. You get to go and be nice and cold when it's 90 to 100 degrees. That's worth some money, all right? You get to enjoy some winter and summer almost at the same time. Which, side ramble on that, I heard that like the Christmas in July, my family went and did something like that with the church or whatever. What on earth is that? That makes no sense to me. No, Christmas needs to stay in December. Why is it in July? No. I mean, I guess I could see people making the argument of like the irony of it, that they're like, oh yeah, we're having Christmas in July, ha ha ha. No. I am a little defensive on this. You have an entire month plus, even into November, like right after Thanksgiving, that everyone is celebrating Christmas. And it's just this massive explosion. It's one of the few holidays that like around the world, and it's not a bad thing, that get so much time, so much dedication, and involved for so long. We don't need to stretch it out and have another bit of it in July. July is separate. It's hot, summertime. It's time for hiking. It's time for being out on the beach. It's not the time for Christmas. It kind of bugs me. But in any case, seems really, really cool. If you guys go, send some photos over to me, and I'll post those over on the Twitter if you guys go visit it. I'll definitely try to go at some point and post some photos there. It looks like a really cool thing. I know it's a little further than the Kuna Ice Caves, or not Kuna Ice Caves, but the Kuna Caves. I know those are also cool, but they can be a little bit more rickety, I've heard. This seems to be a really nice place where they got boardwalks, and I think they have guided tours and different stuff that they'll do depending on the day and stuff, so you have to check their website out. But looks like a really, really cool thing to go do with the family, especially with the hot heat we've been having lately. Moving into the next story here, kind of on the temperature angle of things, but on the hotter end, wildfire update. This comes from the East Idaho News by Mary Boyle. As many of you know, it's fire season in Idaho, thus firefighters are battling several of them all over the state of Idaho. In this section, I'm going to go over two in particular. There are others happening this day, but I wanted to cover these main ones here, and then you can shoot me an email of any of the other ones you might want me to talk about, or a tweet or whatever else, so I can get to those. With that out of the way, the first one is the Hayden Fire, which is burning west of Leodore near Chalice in central Idaho. The fire has grown to 9,660 acres, and as of the writing of this, is 0% contained. The cause of the fire is under investigation, but it is believed to be started by lightning. The fire is threatening several homes and structures, and evacuations have been ordered for some in the area. The other fire is the Elkhorn Fire, which is burning in the Payette National Forest. The fire has grown to 1,500 acres and is also 0% contained. The cause of the Elkhorn Fire is also under investigation, but it is believed to be started by human activity. Thankfully, the fire is not threatening any homes or structures, but it is causing smoke to drift into nearby communities that it has its own kind of effects and stuff. As I kind of talked about at the top, firefighters are also battling several smaller fires in Idaho. These fires generally are all under control, but they're still causing smoke to drift into nearby communities. Which, it's that time of year. Thankfully, the Treasure Valley, I know it sounds a little self-centered, hasn't gotten its smoky season yet. We've been able to breathe and have kind of clear air. But in an interesting thing, it is a side note, but, I want this podcast to not be super serious. And maybe I'm the only one, I don't know. But being born and raised here, when it gets smoky, I really don't get a sore, dry throat. But I think that's just because I was raised here and I've grown up in it and my body is like adapted and used to it. When there's other people that they come from out of state and we get our smoky season and it'll come down to the valley and stuff and they'll be hacking and they won't go outside. And I've seen even the extent where, if it works for you, I get it, where they're having to wear masks and stuff. And I'm just sitting there looking at the two differences. There's them and then there's me, and then there's them and then there's me. Maybe it's just I'm young, and then as I get older, I'll understand, and maybe it's just an age difference thing, but I really wonder if that's something that happens that, if you grow up in it, your body can kind of adapt to it in that sense. I mean, there's many other things like that. Like, I know a lot of friends and stuff that have either moved from Seattle or back east from Nashville, where the humidity is way higher. And then they get here to Idaho, which famously will have dry summers, which is awesome. Dry heat. I'll take dry heat over humid heat every day of the week. But then they'll be sitting there and just having to put moisturizer on all the time, and even in the summer having to put chapstick on, and I'm over there just like, I washed my hands, so yeah. And then when it gets to winter, I'll put a little chapstick on and we'll move on with our life. So it's very fascinating how God made the human body to kind of adapt and be able to kind of roll with it there, especially when you grow up in it. There's something about that in your younger age. You can adapt so much. I mean, people can when they're older, but I feel like you see people that the greatest amount of adaptation occurs when they're younger, where their body's like, well, I'm growing, so I can literally design everything from the ground up to be optimized for the area I'm living in. Rather than when you're older, it's like, well, I've grown, that thing's kind of set in its stone, and that's there, and I can kind of adapt to get more efficient, but I really can't optimize this and that. And it's just very, very fascinating how that kind of works out and stuff. But an update for all you guys up there near Chalice and central Idaho. I hope the fire isn't too bad and people are getting to safety and they'll be able to get it contained here soon. Also, those for the Elkhorn Fire, I hope it gets cleared and finished up shortly. And I hope that the Idaho Fish and Game and Forest Service is making sure to do controlled burns. Please don't listen to California. Do controlled burns. Controlled burns are good. Last year when I was heading up north, they were doing some, and I was so happy to see that. Controlled burns are awesome. I'd rather have a controlled burn that happens that clears out all the combustible material and undergrowth, and then we still have our beautiful trees, than us just waiting. And yeah, you've got this thick, beautiful forest, but that thing's just going to burn like crazy, and we're going to lose all the trees, which I hate. I hate going into areas where it's just burned everything. Everything's just charred, and there's just sticky trees everywhere. It's sad to see when that happens. I'd rather we do controlled burns and we can have our beautiful trees and even less undergrowth. It makes it a lot safer, in my opinion, because you kind of see where you're going. Next, we have Seasonal Restaurant in Boise. This comes by the Boise Dev by Sydney Kidd. Hopefully I got that right. But coming out of the mountain into the valley for some food, there's a new restaurant moving into downtown Boise called the Salt Bush. Hopefully I'm saying that right, one word. The restaurant is a seasonal, global-inspired restaurant that is slated to open early in 2024. It is the brainchild of Neil Grant and Eric Johnson, who are both passionate about food and hospitality. The menu at the Salt Bush will feature dishes from around the world with a focus on fresh local ingredients. The restaurant will also have a full bar with a wide selection of wine, beers, and cocktails. The interior of the Salt Bush is designed to be warm and inviting. The space is filled with natural light, and there is a large patio that is perfect for dining al fresco. The place looks like somewhere you can enjoy delicious food from around the world in a warm and inviting atmosphere. If you're looking for a new dining experience in Boise, it's worth visiting when they open. Which, the only reason I brought this up, and I didn't put it in the quickies and I wanted to talk about, is the photo, the kind of general renders they're talking about here look really cool. It reminds me of some of the nice traditional restaurants you would see back east and stuff, and some of the older buildings. They've got these big, beautiful windows, chandeliers, you got ferns and different stuff in there, and it looks really, really pretty just for the fact of, I have no doubt it sounds like the food is going to be delicious, and I'm curious to see what they'll serve and stuff, especially when they're focusing on local ingredients, because you know me, I love local. There's a reason I like local yokel, Idaho. But it will be, I think the experience will be so interesting if the photos that they have there at the Boise Dev and stuff are to be believed. It looks like a really, really fun and enjoyable dining experience just because the way they've set it up and stuff. I know they're going to be opening in early 2024, so maybe it'll be something I can do here when the weather gets bad and make a video and stuff. As I said, I'm trying to get to the point here on the podcast where I can do some videos, some YouTube videos and do stuff. I haven't stated it publicly, so I guess I'll just throw it out here real quick. I'll do it again somewhere else at some other time, but I am looking for someone to help with shooting it, kind of a cameraman or a person to come along with me, because when you're shooting videos, it's nice to have a second person. Still trying to figure that all out, and then different things that are going on. There's a lot of stuff we're working, I say me. I should say me. I always want to say we about the podcast, but it's just me. It's kind of funny. But any case, looks like a really cool restaurant going in there, and it'll be interesting to go try it out. If you guys go, let me know. Continuing with the topic of food and the Treasure Valley, our next story here is Say Goodbye to Bad Boy Burger on Fairview. This comes by the Boise Deb by Autumn Robertsons. Normally, I would have put this story in the quickies, but this is one of my favorite burger places in the valley, so I just had to talk about it. Now, Bad Boy Burger is a burger joint on Fairview in Boise. It recently changed its name to Cowboy Burgers. As many of you know, Bad Boy Burger was a popular burger joint near Fairview and North Cole Road for many years. However, it recently changed owners and decided to change its name to Cowboy Burger. The owners said that they wanted to create a more family-friendly atmosphere, and they felt that the name Cowboy Burger better reflected the atmosphere of the restaurant. Also, since it's no longer owned by Bad Boy Burger, they legally need to change the name, so that played a little bit of a factor in there. The menu at the Cowboy Burger is still the same as it was when it was called the Bad Boy Burger. They offer a variety of burgers, including classic cheeseburgers, a bacon cheeseburger, honestly, they're best, and I didn't know they had this, a vegan burger. They also have a variety of sides, including fries, onion rings, and tater tots. According to the article, the restaurant is now decorated with a Western-themed decor, and there's a large patio where you can eat outside, which the patio was kind of already there, but kind of giving context about this. For me, this is my criteria of like the best burger you can get. Number one, you have the patty. When you're talking about like the meat patty or whatever else. It needs to be moist, right? You want it to have moisture. It needs to be juicy. It needs to have flavor. It needs not to be really dry and stuff, but it also doesn't need to be so oily and juicy that when you're eating into the burger, you're just getting oil everywhere. I feel like, for me anyways, that's kind of a no-go experience, that you want the moisture to be in the burger, but you don't want to be super greasy. That's like my first criteria for a good burger. And then two, with that you have that juicy burger, but then the bun stays dry in the sense that like sometimes you'll have a really good patty and then they'll put it on the burger and then it's been like sitting on the patties and stuff, or the patties aren't good. And then you get it and you got these soggy patties. The meat's great, but the patty is just not good. And then number three, having fresh kind of vegetables to put on it and different condiments that are nice and crisp and good. And that's kind of like the three biggest things you're wanting in a burger for me anyways. That's kind of my criteria. And Bad Boy Burger does a really, really good job, in my opinion, when I was there, or now Cowboy Burger, of delivering that. I went over there many times. I used to work really close nearby there, and I would just walk over there when I was younger and get food there. And also really affordable. I haven't gone recently, so I don't know what their prices are right now. But they make a really good burger. It's juicy, but yet not so juicy that it's dripping everywhere. The patty stays dry, but the bun is delicious and moist, and it keeps its moisture in there. And they always have crisp vegetables when I've had it on there, and different condiments and stuff. And it's been really good, and also affordable that I can get a burger. I remember, I don't know if it's probably changed, but you can get the burger, like a bacon cheeseburger, whatever else. You can get it with Swiss too. In a lot of places I've gone, you can't get it with Swiss cheese, but you can get it there. And you can get their bacon cheeseburger, and then you can get fries and a drink, and you can get that whole thing for like $13, $12. I mean, I remember being able to get it under 10 at one point, but that's long gone. So if there's a place that you really like burgers, I would recommend dropping by there. It's sad to hear kind of the changing of the name, shall we say. On the flip side, I will admit, I kind of like the idea of them changing up the decor because I really liked the place, but it was kind of hard for me personally to recommend it to some of my friends and stuff. Mainly because you'd go in and it had that kind of bad boy burger, feel and whatever. And it wasn't really as family friendly. So I can see the angle where they're coming at from it there, kind of changing the name. And I am very curious to kind of drop by. Hopefully they've upgraded the mic system. The one over there in Fairview, it didn't always have a great drive-through experience. I will say that. That was one detractor, that they had a really, really old drive-through system. So hopefully they've upgraded that, and having new booths and paint and all that and everything. It looks like it'd be a really cool place to drop by, and I would highly recommend trying it. I'm going to go and try it, and hopefully it hasn't changed too much from its original roots as being one of my favorite places in town to get burgers from. Moving into our next story here, possible solar farm near the Boise airport. This comes by the Boise Dev by Sydney Kidd. Speaking of things in Boise, there's a newly proposed 6.25 square mile solar farm that could be coming to the Black Creek area southeast of the Boise airport. The solar farm is being proposed by Savion, hopefully I got that right, a renewable energy company owned by the oil company Shell. The project would generate approximately 400 megawatts of power a day, enough energy to power over 92 homes, assuming the sun is shining, of course. It would cost $400 million to build and is estimated to operate for about 40 years. The solar farm would be located on a 4,328 acre property south of the Boise airport. Savion has already reached an agreement with the landowners to lease the land. Now, with that said, the project is still in the early stages and is not yet clear if it will be approved. The reasons for Savion building is due to Idaho Power's 2026 and 2027 request for proposals, in which Idaho Power picks providers to buy renewable power from. Now, there are a few things to consider about the proposal for this solar farm. First, it is a large project and it is unclear how it will impact the area around it. And secondly, the project is located near the Boise airport, and there are concerns that the solar panels' glare may affect operations at the airport. Which I have nothing against solar. Actually, out of all the renewables that we think of, wind and solar and stuff, I think they are one of the smartest ones. It's kind of copying what plants do, and plants are everywhere on this planet. And so many animals use photosynthesis for energy, for life. I mean, even us humans, our skin uses it to create vitamin D. It is a proven thing that we see God used, and if you're someone who doesn't believe in God, nature uses for energy to generate, and I think it's smart for us to try to improve that. Now, with that said, if we're truly looking at the angle of, okay, we want an energy that's kind of in the sense, we invest in it, maybe it's expensive at the front end, but going down into the future, it pays back for itself. It's renewable. It's not creating any gases in that sense and stuff, which we won't get into the fact that building the panels creates a ton of carbon dioxide, but that's a different thing. That I don't think solar is the best for that. I've talked about it on here before. I think nuclear is the best way to go forward. It's something that we have been testing and tinkering with for years and years and years. The amount of power we can get out of it and how consistent we can get it, and it can run at all times of the day. If we had really, really good batteries, like really good batteries where they had the power density equal to that of gasoline, they didn't have thermal issues, they last for a super long amount of time, all the things, build your dream battery, right? I think solar would actually be the best way to go, because you could put all these solar panels out, and then they would supercharge all these power banks and stuff, and then we could pull from it off onto the grid during the night and different things, and a really, really smart system. But batteries aren't there, and solar panels are expensive, and they come from China, and they do create a lot of carbon dioxide to make, in the sense, which is a detractor. and they take up large swaths of areas to do it and everything because of their efficiency and stuff. And they only work when the sun's really shining. I mean, you do get solar power even in cloudy days. A lot of people think, oh, the cloud, no solar. No, it's just diffused light. When the clouds come, they diffuse those direct rays of light. The solar panels can still pick up and use that energy. There is a decrease in efficiency, but you still do get power from it. But if we're looking at a truly renewable resource for Idaho, one, we've already got a great one, which is the dams. Those are awesome. They didn't create a ton of carbon to make them. They're concrete. They're built. We just change the turbines out. We use water to force it through. It creates a ton of recreation for people to go fishing and to drive their boats and everything. And it generates a ton of power for the state. And the dams here in Idaho was one of the smartest things that we've done as a state that keeps us in the nation some of the most cheapest and most reliable power, which is awesome. And I think the next step for Idaho's energy that would be amazing and also a smart step to continue with that lineage of smart decisions when it comes to power for Idaho is nuclear. Here in the state, we have huge deposits of uranium and thorium and all the different resources that you need for the fuel for nuclear reactors. We've got the research institutes here in Idaho, INEL, that has all the expertise, all the knowledge possible about nuclear and how it works, be it with traditional and also the research and new thorium or small modular reactors. And plus, we have a massive desert, in a sense, to the bottom of us here to the south that we could build these reactors on and stuff, and it wouldn't be a concern about them affecting cities if something went wrong and stuff because they're out in the middle of nowhere in the desert. And so I think nuclear is a wonderful option. The only thing Idaho needs to invest in is 1, the mines, 2, to build nuclear plants, and then 3, to have the refinement of uranium here in the state. I don't know if INEL already has that capability, but I think adding that would, 1, be good for the state because we could do everything in state. We can mine our own uranium, refine our own uranium or thorium, depending on the system you're talking about. And we can have our own reactors to run it here. And then we'd also bring a ton of industry from out of state that needs different things refined and prepared for their reactors and stuff to have done here. And I know there's the fears of Chernobyl. There's the fears of 5 Mile Island, all these things that have happened. And nuclear is scary. But think of it in this sense. We've had so much time to practice with it and learn and improve it. And also the new systems that are running with thorium coming online. Thorium isn't quite as powerful as a uranium reactor, if I remember correctly, or plutonium. I can't remember the name of it exactly. And it has a shorter half-life. So if something goes wrong, they're a lot easier to manage, a lot easier to shut off. You don't have to be relying on outside systems and stuff. And they work really, really reliably. And the fallout from them, thorium has a way shorter half-life, if I remember correctly. I think it's like 15, 20 years. So yeah, say something bad happened. Well, that area can be lived in again and will be clean and won't have any radiation in under 20 to 15 years, which is way, way more reasonable than some of the other big reactors and stuff that we have issues with, which we can mine here in Idaho. And also the fact we can see that other countries have been able to prove this system. France is a perfect example of it. The United States and Europe are 2 different beasts. They can't say they're one-to-one, but France has standardized a certain reactor that's used in all of theirs. So one technician can work in one reactor and he can go over to another reactor and it's the same thing. So he knows how to work on every single plant in France because they all use a standardized system. Here in the United States, every reactor during when we were building them was all built custom. So you have to be an expert in every single one you go to. And they're all different. Rather than France, all standardized. So it makes it really easy, really reliable. Everyone knows how each one works because they're all the same. And so thus, the majority of all the power, I think it's like 80% of France's power, is all generated through nuclear. And they have really low carbon emissions, and they put those plants in, and we have never heard of a nuclear disaster, as far as I understand, over in France. And they're doing great. So I think it's an example of, in the early days of nuclear, did we have problems? Yeah, we had problems. Yeah, we made issues. We made errors. But I think we've either come over those, or if we're still concerned about the risk, we can go with thorium or something. And here in Idaho, I think we could do it and lead the pack in the development of that and bringing that and truly having, if for those that are worried about carbon emissions and climate change, have a truly carbon neutral system. Now coming to our last story here and our fun one. Thank you for coming through the whole bit. I know it was a lot longer than usual today, but there were a lot of good stuff and I just wanted to share with you. With that said, tanks in Rathdrum. This comes by the Coeur d'Alene / Post Falls Press by Carolyn Bostick. For any of the guys out there, this is a super cool summer story that might spark some interest for a father and son project. Wink, wink. The Hosick family in Rathdrum, Idaho has a unique hobby, restoring demilitarized vehicles. They got into the hobby about 20 years ago when their son was getting ready for college. They thought it'd be a fun way to make money for him when he was going to college, but they got hooked on it ever since. The Hosicks have acquired a variety of vehicles over the years, including a British self-propelled gun that recently drove in the Rathdrum Days Parade. The self-propelled gun is a retired FV 433 Abbott 105mm vehicle. Whew, I got through it there first try. It is a British vehicle, so the driver's seat is on the right side or the wrong side for us Americans. It is also not very fuel efficient, getting about 3 miles per gallon. You know, we could call that freedom there, but the Hosicks don't mind the challenges. They said it's a lot of fun to restore these vehicles and then show them off at parades and other events. As for the process of restoring them, the Hosicks start the restoration process by finding a demilitarized vehicle they're interested in. They then do research to learn about the vehicle's history and how it works. Once they have a good understanding of the vehicle, they start the restoration process. The process can be challenging at times, but is also very rewarding. The Hosicks have had to learn how to work with different types of tools and materials. They also have to be very patient and persistent. They are proud of the work they've done restoring demilitarized vehicles. They say it is a great feeling to see a vehicle that was once in disrepair come back to life. They also enjoy sharing their restored vehicles with others, which is cool to see. I will admit, one thing I want to do someday that's kind of along this lines is to get myself like a Sherman tank. That would be so fun if I got myself a nice piece of property, either up like north in Idaho or just somewhere where I've got several acres that it's all just mine and I could have a workshop and a shed. And this is a very guide thing, I know. And then I could own a demilitarized like Sherman tank, and then on the weekends or when I have friends or families or guests over, we could take it out and go drive it around the property. That would be so much fun. That is like a pipeline kind of hobby dream for me to have that and to do that. It's cool that they got kind of a British self-propelled gun and that they have that in the parade so kids can kind of see that and experience that. I know with the Canyon County Fair, I think last year, I don't know about this year, they had some military group where they brought their vehicles, not the same extent, shall we say, but experiencing it. But it's cool to see kind of that history and to palpably be able to like climb on it and be in it. That, and also, this might be a controversial topic, but I know a lot of people like ATVs. I've driven on ATVs. I love ATVs. But if I ever get the money for an ATV, I'm not actually going to buy an ATV. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy a Willys Jeep, one of those like World War II or maybe a little bit after ones, and have that because they're a little larger than an ATV from what I hear, but you get kind of a more covered experience, right? You've got this really strong bulletproof type of transmission. There's a lot of spare parts because, man, they built a lot of those. Detroit was busy during World War II, if you know what I mean. And have one of those to go up in the mountains and treat it like a four-wheeler. And also, you know, worst case, I can drive it on the road. I think they're road legal if I remember correctly, and signals and stuff. I'll be slow, right? So, you know, if I'm going up north, I'm probably going to have to throw it on a trailer or whatever else to get it up there, and then whatever I'm going to stop at. But I feel like that's a way better investment, and I would have way more fun with that than an ATV. I hear guys having issues, and then they have all these computers, and it's tight, and you're working on it, and they're always having issues and stuff. I'd say get that. And then it's a cool conversational piece. The guy's riding his ATV, and I've got like a World War II one. I probably changed the shocks out. I heard that like the shocks or the system on them wasn't really good, so you need to kind of upgrade that. But that's what I would really like to do. But this is a super cool story. If the Hosicks family reaches out to me or hears this, I would love to come up and like shoot a video with you guys about the different vehicles or helping you work on some stuff, because this sounds super cool and a really fun experience. And it's kind of funny how little things that you thought, oh, we'll just do this fun thing for college or for him or whatever else, kind of bloom into like full-on businesses sometimes, or things that just kind of take over your whole life. And it's kind of cool how that happens. And I think it's a lesson to a lot of us that if there's something that we really want to do and something we're interested, just go and work on it and do it and try it. And you never know what might happen. It may become your full-time job. You may just learn a new skill that you can use somewhere else. It's just always a joy. Don't let fear and worry grind you to a halt in doing stuff. If that was the case, I would have never done this podcast. I know I had it in the ideas for like a year or two or whatever, and I was just fearful, and I don't have that figured out. I don't have that, and yada yada. And so I just went for it. And I know, thank you for all of you them listening from the very beginning. I know it's had lumps and bumps, and I'm trying to improve it and stuff, and your guys' feedback is immense, and thank you so very, very much. But part of that doctrine is what has made this podcast, and it's just super cool to kind of see that as well with the tanks and stuff. And who knows, maybe we'll be able to do a video with them. That would be super, super cool to go up there and shoot a video of me working with them on that and enjoying that, because it sounds like so much fun. Now moving into the Quickies. These are stories that I thought you guys should know about, but weren't worth a full story with like discussion and all that and everything. And they're a little shorter, but something I think you guys still wanted to hear about. Starting out with our first one here, Amazon and Idaho Falls. This comes by the East Idaho News by Rhett Nelson. As I talked about a week or two back, there is a new Amazon delivery station going in Idaho Falls. It had its ribbon cutting ceremony a week or two back. The new station is located at 3700 South Pioneer Drive in Idaho Falls. It is a 107,000 square feet facility that employs over 200 people. It will be responsible for delivering packages to customers in Idaho Falls, Rexburg, and the surrounding areas. Packages arrive at the station from the Amazon Fulfillment Center, and then they are sorted and loaded onto delivery vans. The station is a welcome addition to the Idaho Falls community and is creating jobs and is helping to improve the efficiency of Amazon's delivery network in the area. Next is I-90 project going smoothly. This comes by the Shoshone News Press by Josh McDonald. Some good news to hear from up north and for down here. As many of you know, there are a number of road construction projects underway on I-90 through Silver Valley. These projects are aimed at improving safety and traffic flow in the area. One of the longest stretches of the construction is located near the western base of I-90. This project is surprisingly progressing right on schedule, and drivers may have noticed that the lanes that have been finished are significantly smoother. The project is expected to be completed by the end of this construction season, with some mopping up work in the spring of 2024. The second major project that's going on involves the replacement of the westbound bridge near Kellogg. The project is also ahead of schedule, and the bridge construction over Division Street is beginning to come together. The project is expected to complete on October. And then lastly, the newest section of the roadwork on I-90 between Wallace and Osborne is still in progress. This project will repave the stretch of highway and install a drainage system that will prevent the historic dangerous water over road dilemma that has occurred near Wallace anytime a good rainstorm moves through the area. Crews have spent the first part of the project scraping more than a foot of old paving material from the former eastbound lanes, and they are now removing the debris. I will admit I was going through there when that was working on. It was cool to see, but also a little interesting. The next step will be to rebuild the road and then get it paved by the end of September. The other side of the project will be completed next summer with a similar project beginning between Osborne and Wallace. In conclusion, it sounds like you guys are having a lot of road work happening up there, but it's wonderful to hear that it's going according to schedule and is moving fast. Hopefully it'll be done soon. You guys will have a nice brand new freeway to drive on. Next is Sockeye Salmon and Sawtooth Basin. This comes by KTVB7 by staff. Now, according to Idaho Fish and Game, there has been a significant increase in the number of sockeye salmon returning to the Sawtooth Basin this year. As of July 26, Idaho Fish and Game has counted 1,295 sockeye at the Lower Granite Dam. That's more than double the 10-year average of 754. The increase in the salmon is a good news for the Sawtooth Basin. Sockeye are an important part of its ecosystem, and the return is a sign that the environment is healthy. There are a number of factors that could contribute to the increase in the sockeye salmon population. One of the factors is the implementation of advanced techniques and programs by Idaho Fish and Game. It is assumed that the techniques and programs have helped to improve the survival rate of the sockeye salmon. Another factor that could be contributing to the increase in the area is the weather. This year, the weather in the area has been favorable for their migration. The water levels in the Snake River have been high, which has made it easier for them to swim upstream. The increase in Sockeye salmon is a welcome development for the Sawtooth Basin. It is seen as a sign that the environment is healthy and is a boost to the local community. Next is Boise Wildfire. This comes by KTV B7 by staff. I know we already talked about wildfires above, but I thought I just needed to stick this one in here because of Boise and the relevance of it. This last week, there was a wildfire over by Boise. The fire was dubbed MM66I84 Fire, which started around 6 p.m. last Friday and quickly spread to 994 acres. The fire was located near the weighing station outside of Boise, and officials said the active fire spread had been stopped shortly after 7 p.m. The Bureau of Land Management responded to the fire with 4 engines, 4 single-engine air tanker seats, a dozer and a water tender, a U.S. Forest Service engine, and a Mountain Home RFPA dozer assisted in the fire suppression efforts. Drivers traveling on I-84 in the area of the fire were asked to drive with caution and expect delays. The cause of the fire has not been determined. It is under investigation like most of these things are, but it is a reminder of the dangers of wildfires in Idaho. This time of year, the state is in the midst of its fire season, and it is important to be aware of the risks and take precautions to stay safe. If you're planning on going outdoors, be sure to check fire conditions before you go. You should be aware of the signs of a wildfire, such as smoke and flames. If you see a wildfire, do not hesitate to call 911. Moving a little bit easternly, treasure in eastern Idaho. This comes with the East Idaho News by Rhett Nelson. With the fire topic put out over in eastern Idaho, there is a treasure hunt, a new event that is being hosted by Anderson Hicks Group. The Idaho Treasure Hunt is a scavenger hunt that will take place in eastern Idaho. The prize for finding the treasure is a certificate for $5,000, along with other prizes donated by local sponsors. The treasure is hidden somewhere in eastern Idaho. Clues will be released weekly on the Anderson Hicks Group Instagram page and website. The first person to find the treasure chest will win the prize. The Idaho Treasure Hunt is being hosted by Anique Wilder, marketing manager for Anderson Hicks Group. Wilder says that she was inspired to host the event after seeing how much people enjoyed the treasure hunts that were hosted last year. Quote, "Coming out of the pandemic, a lot of people had gotten into the habit of being a homebody." Wilder says, quote, "We wanted to inspire more adventure, and this created more hope in the community than I ever thought," end quote. Wilder hopes that the Idaho Treasure Hunt will provide people with an opportunity to get out of the house and explore eastern Idaho. She also hopes that it will bring families together and create lasting memories. And coming to our last quickie, thank you for staying with me here. Eastern Idaho Repair Shop celebrates 44 years. This comes by the East Idaho News by Rhett Nelson. Keeping on the topic of Eastern Idaho and wrapping it up, there is a local auto repair shop that's celebrating 44 years in business. This shop is called Sage Creek Repair and is located in Idaho Falls. It was founded in 1979 by Dale Spalding, who was a natural at fixing things. He started the shop in his garage, and he quickly built a reputation for his quality work and his friendly customer service. In 1994, Dale's son, Brett, joined the business. Brett had a passion for cars, and he was eager to learn the trade from his father. He quickly became a skilled mechanic, and he helped to expand the shop's services. Today, Sage Creek Repair is a full-service auto repair shop. They offer services from oil changes to engine repair, and they also have a full-service auto body shop. From local Yokel Idaho to all of you over there at Sage Creek Repair, great job. It is hard to keep providing a quality service for so long and to compete with larger shops. Keep it up, and here's to many more years for you all over there. Closing us out here, thank you for listening to the entire podcast. I sincerely hope you found this enjoyable and valuable. If I missed any important points or provided incorrect information, please feel free to reach out to me via email at localyokelidaho@gmail.com or on Twitter by tweeting me at localyokelidaho. As a one-man show, I'm not able to cover everything, but I'll do my best to cover the most interesting and important stories. Thank you for your continued support and assistance. That's all for now, and I wish you a fantastic rest of your week. Godspeed.